Hi, welcome everybody to week 3 of Gen Ed 53 Overview of Addictions. I just wanted to first thank everybody for all of their contributions over the last 2 weeks. In looking at the discussion boards, it was wonderful to see people chiming in and people engaging in discussion with one another and really starting to address the content that they read, but also what they were hoping to get out of the course and why they took the course in the first place. I wanted to let people know I will be going through those and marking them over the next week. I'm hoping to have them finished by the end of the week, and there will be a little bit of comments, and I'll send those back as to how I thought people did and what I was looking for. The other thing is I wanted to let people know in the first discussion, I'm not going to be looking to be too difficult on the marking. And I will be indicating kind of what I'm looking for. I'm sure some people saw, I read through the discussions and the posts that people did, and I left some comments here and there and really tried to engage a little bit more in the conversation. And the big thing that I will be looking for going forward is I'm going to be looking for how people are relating what they're reading in the text to the questions that are being asked. And I'm interested in people's opinion and what they're thinking, but I want that in contrast to what the research is showing. And that's, people probably saw the examples that I left. I left a link to a study that was done, or pulling out direct, stuff directly from the text, things like that. And so I'm really hoping to see more of that. And I was really encouraged by what I saw and the discussions and the dialogue that was taking place. I thought that was great, and so I'm really looking forward to more of that. So thanks everybody for that. I feel like it was a really successful first go, and I know for a lot of you, maybe most of you, that this is the first time doing an online course, and so there's a pretty steep learning curve with this, and I can tell just by a lot of the questions that I'm getting through email. Which is why I'm going to continue as we go along to try to address those the best that I can. I know this week, so kind of looking forward to seeing how people navigate this next assignment and this next task, which is going to be working collaboratively, working together to create an information page, so a wiki. I originally had a link to that, but I had there's two. There's a student and there's an instructor. I thought I'd put the student up, but I had linked to the instructor. So I have since changed that this afternoon. I changed that and put that up so that you can see now if you click on that link. So if you've read that, I would go back and read the link that I put in there, and that's in the description of the assignment. So if you click into course content and assessments, click on Course Assessments, and click on Assessment number 2, Major Drug Classification, Small Groups, and Small Groups Assignment. I've left a little description of what I'm looking for. This is worth 10% of your final mark. There's 8 questions or 8 things I'd like addressed. Really, at the end of the day, what this is that you are researching and coming up with information on a substance. Substance and or a classification. So the 2 classifications, one for sure is hallucinogens. That's a classification. So especially at question 4, what do each classifications look like? You may want to be fairly general in that, as well as for people doing opioids. Opioids is in a classification, and you'll probably see that. But because opioids cover such a broad topic, then you'll see that I've put that in as one. I mean, actually, a lot of these can be fairly broad, and also what do drugs in each of the classification do to the central nervous system? So you'll get a sense, of what we're looking for there in answering those questions. That's just a sample of a few of the questions that are being asked, and what we're going to do is, students are going to work together to create it's called a wiki, which is essentially like Wikipedia, where you have multiple contributors who don't actually get together, but yet they all contribute to the page. And I've already had a few questions, a few emails about this. A couple things I'm going to say. So one, read the link. Click the link to the instructions. And secondly, if you go back and you go into your course content and assessments, just if you go into the link, and when you click course assessments, if you scroll all the way to the bottom of your assessments page, you're going to see a little video about how to work together in student groups online. And that's a little link about kind of how to access the groups and things like that. What's going to happen is you're only going to see your group. So there is 7 different subjects or topics, and you're only going to see your group. One of the things you can do in that group link, you should be able to email each other and things like that. So you're going to have to email each other. If you're on the same campus, you can get together, you can email. You can be creative on how you do it. However you guys choose to exchange information or work together is going to be up to you, and there isn't one way to do it. So, I'm getting a few emails about how do I do this. I could give you information on how to do it in multiple ways. Like I said, you can get together in person, you can do it all through email, you can do it through text or phone, or if you're still struggling to navigate Blackboard, it's gonna get tricky as we go along, because these assignments are getting trickier. Like this one here, it's getting a little bit more difficult. So if I'm struggling still to navigate Blackboard, I need to spend a little more time logging into it. The other thing is I was at the Kingston campus. I'm at the Kingston campus Tuesday afternoons. Tuesday from 2:30 to 5:30. I teach a class. I generally wrap up a little bit early a little after 5. So if you want to meet after 5 o'clock on Tuesdays, you can email me. We can schedule a time. It's possible to meet before class, but I generally don't have as much time before. But after 5 o'clock, I'm normally, or 5 to 5:15, I'm normally available to meet. So feel free to email me. I can do the best to get in touch with you that way. If it's about navigating Blackboard, though, the best people to contact about that is your IT department. And as I was at the school, I stopped by because they were open, and I saw this big banner that said, "Are you struggling to navigate Blackboard?" And so I just went in and said, I'm teaching an online course. What kind of information can students get here? And they said, you know what? If you have students, direct them towards us. So each campus has an IT department or IT help center. In the Kingston campus, it's right as you walk by the front desk. You're going towards the cafeteria. Right before you get to the cafeteria, there's a little office thing that you walk in, and they got a desk there. I don't know where it is on the Cornwall or Brockville campus, but I have been assured that they do have them. So contact them if you're still struggling to navigate Blackboard. They can help you kind of go through it. But I think the best way to do it is to get on there, watch the videos that I've put up, or read the announcements, because I'm getting a lot of questions just about some of the same stuff that are in those announcements, and I'm okay because I will redirect back to those. So again, always feel free to ask the questions that you have, and I'll redirect you to where those resources are. But if you watch the video that's in your course assessments, right at the bottom of course assessments, it's about how to work in groups. How to work in student groups. It's about 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes, 1 minute and 49 seconds. It's pretty helpful to at least get you started. Again, also click that link around how to work with a wiki. Essentially, though, people can edit the page, and you can add in any kind of content, links, resources, just like you would when you look at a Wikipedia page. It's got pictures, information, links to other sites, things like that, and you guys can do all that. Each group has about 7 people. There are 1 or 2 people that have been inactive, 2 people who have been inactive from the last 2 weeks, and I'm not sure whose groups they're in. So do the best to try to contact each other. If there's 1 or 2 people that aren't in contact, that might be what it is. But you can let me know if you're struggling to get in contact. But again, please try on your own to email each other and contact each other. I think that's really the best way to get a handle on this, is just to get involved, get on Blackboard. Because what I could see is, I have access to when people have logged on and how much time they're spending on there, and I know that there are some people that just aren't spending as much time. And the only way to get to know how to use it is to spend time. And again, if you're really struggling, go in and use that help desk. They are really helpful. Or again, send me emails. I'll do the best I can, but most likely I'm going to redirect you to where the best support is. And if it's navigating Blackboard, I'm not necessarily it, but I will help you with that content. So one of the things I wanted to do is I also wanted to touch on last module, last 1 and 2's material. Just let me pull up some notes here. One of the things I wanted to touch on was the biopsychosocial plus model. I thought people did a great job interacting. We looked at all the dimensions, and it's a wonderful model to help conceptualize addiction. I like the model, and I like the way the textbook talks about it, because it talks about it in really great ways. One of my favorite ways that it talks about it is that it talks about each of the dimensions and how they interact with one another, and that it's interesting because I had you guys pick a dimension and talk about it, but all the dimensions work together in connection with one another, and they're non-reductive, and the text even talks about this word non-reductive, and what they mean by that is that we can never reduce somebody's specific issues to one dimension necessarily, and that it's generally multiple dimensions coming together. I saw a lot of people talking about that when I was reading people's responses, and you might have seen me prompting a few times about, okay, well, how would this dimension interact with another dimension, and are they separate from one another? And I think people were able to engage with that to some extent. And so the biopsychosocial plus model, one of the greatest things about it is also one of its biggest challenges or difficulties, which is that it's complex. Because it's complex, it's great, and it really doesn't, as I said, doesn't reduce anything down to one thing, and it doesn't reduce people down to, saying, well, it's just a biological piece, or it's just a social issue, or this is a cultural issue, that if we just worked out, it really looks at things and it looks at people as complex beings, and that's what we are. The complexities that we are made up of, and we're made up of those 5 dimensions. We're biological, we're chemicals, and we're neurons, and there's stuff going on in our brain, and there's genetics, genetic components to us as people, which have factors in how we operate. Each one of us has genetic coding, and that's been passed on from our parents and ancestors, and we get that passed on to us, and that has a lot to do with who we are as people. Things like height, weight, what we look like. Then we also we have that psychological component, and that is made up of so many factors in and of itself. Just as we looked at with the biological, it has so many factors. Psychological has a multitude of factors, and when we look at the mind, I know in our text it says that the mind is a very important tool, and the mind is as important to psychology as the brain is to neurology. And so our mind and our motivation and the things that we learn growing up affect our psyche and affect our psychological development. And then we also look at social, and I mean, how linked is social and psychological development? They are. I saw a lot of discussion around that, and how there's a huge link to psychological and social, and the social environments that we grow up in, and the impact that it has on us mentally, and maybe to some extent physically, with and how we develop. And then we look at the idea of the cultural and the spiritual, which are newer dimensions. I mean, when that model first came out, we looked at just the biological, the psychological, and the social. Those were the 3 major dimensions. And over time, in the early 2000s, we started looking at other dimensions, adding spiritual and cultural, and so such important dimensions. And spiritual dimension, I mean, in the broadest of sense, spirituality is this idea of a connection to our innermost self and a connection to something greater than ourselves, whether that's people or things, and the other thing too is that with spiritual, we often get confused, and with our culture, especially in the Western world, we often look at it as a religious component, and that may be for some people, but it isn't reduced down again to religion. It's both religious and non-religious, and in those broadest senses, a connection to our innermost self and a connection to something greater than ourselves. And we can see, I mean, I know in my everyday work, when I work with individuals with addiction, in addiction counseling, and I do both I see people individually in an outpatient setting, and I also run both education and therapy groups. And one of the things I see often, I mean, I just had this conversation with someone very recently, an individual who, one of the major contributing factors is the lack of spirituality in this person's life, a lack of connection to anything, themselves and people outside of themselves. A very small world in terms of spirituality, and very little connection, and has actually in recent meetings, the individual was talking about how they are just coming to this realization that this has been going on actually since they were a child, since they were in their at least early teens is when they first started thinking about this, which was, it seemed like other people were connected to religion or spirituality, and they did not seem connected to those things, and it began this cycle of disconnection. So I mean, there's one example of spirituality, but if we unpack that, there's also a lot of social aspects, psychological, and with this individual, there's a heavy biological component. About 4 or 5 family members struggle with addiction themselves. And I mean, what we see with this is that it isn't any one factor, and that there's multiple factors here, which is great to see. And I see that every day in the work that I do with individuals, and it's great that you guys were interacting and engaging in that. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to kind of share my experience with the biopsychosocial model. It's complex, and it really it's challenging every day to work with that model, because when I work with an individual, I have to take into account so many factors, and it is a challenge to look at all those factors and see how they're interacting with one another. But over the years, I've really learned to see how they interact with each other, and it's almost now, when you start to see some areas, you can almost start to read the connections, before they come out, and it's kind of neat to see that a lot of this stuff is connected, and as I was saying before, it's non-reductive, and we don't reduce it down and say, well, it's only this area. Actually, it's multiple areas, and that these areas have connections with one another, and it's quite fascinating for me. And then obviously there's the neurobiology of addiction, and to me, I love the brain and the body, and neuroscience, and how that works, and how our bodies and our brains are connected, and how what we put into our bodies, affects us on so many levels, and so. It's really neat to see how people are kind of talking about that and engaging with that. So, that's just a little bit of my take on the biopsychosocial model, and a little bit of, how I use that every day, and I look at those complexities that they bring on a regular basis with individuals, both in the group setting that I work in, and in individual setting. The other thing I want to touch on then is just around week 3. So you do have week 3 and 4, same as the first module, how it was 1 and 2. Sorry, the first set of modules, 1 and 2, how it was a 2-week period. You do have 2 weeks to work on this, and you will, again, it'll be due by Sunday at 11:59 p.m. You'll be able to edit up until that point, and that's when the wikis will be completed. At that point, they'll be being graded after that, and what will happen is everybody in the group will get a grade. I'm going to be, in the next couple days, uploading a rubric, so you can kind of see what I'm looking for in that for that assignment. The other thing I wanted to touch on was just Chapter 7. So again, I have gotten a few emails just regarding material and textbook and stuff like that. It's very important that you have a textbook. I get the same question in class as well. Actually, I just completed in class week 3 teaching about the same thing, substance use and the effects. And the in class is actually doing a very similar exercise, a little bit different because they're going to do PowerPoint presentations and audio video stuff, whereas you guys are just doing a little bit of a wiki page. But the marking's different too. You guys, it's only for 10%. For theirs, it's 15 with the in class piece. But I just finished that component, and one of the things that I was looking at was substance effects and reading chapter 7, and I'm getting those questions around the material. Do I need the book or things like that? And I mean, my answer in class, absolutely, you need the book if you want to pass the course. It's going to be hard to pass a course without the textbook. Online, I feel like it's even more crucial. I mean, I think it's crucial in both settings to have the text, but online, your 50% of your mark is going to be engaging with the text. And what I mean by that is reading the material and then engaging in the discussions and communicating and dialoguing with the discussions and answering the questions. And it's really hard to answer the questions without the text. As I was saying before, as I start marking, you're going to get a sense of what it is I'm looking for and how much information and referencing information and where you're getting it from. And again, week 1, I'm going to be I'll be marking that and giving more feedback. But from here on out, I'm going to be looking for that more in order to be getting those full marks, those 5 marks. You're going to need to really be showing me where you're basing your information off of and things like that. And the text is a large component of that. So that's having said that, I highly encourage people before they enter into the wikis to read the page. Please read the assignment, what it's asking of you. I believe that can answer a lot of questions for people. And sorry, I'm just pulling up a resource that I wanted to share with you, and it's a website that's quite useful, and I'll put a link to it. But if you were to Google, I just Googled, it's called Utah and addictions, and the link that I get, the first link is, so I'll log back out and I'll show you that, is the first link I get. It says The Science of Addictions, Genetics and the Brain. And what happens is if you log into that, and I'm going to put a direct link up on the site, so you're going to see that. But what happens is as you go in there, there's a lot of information. There's also some interactive things. Some people may have heard of this before, but there's a fun little interactive thing called Mouse Party. And what you do with Mouse Party is you click on it, and then you can pick up a mouse. You can kind of see. Sometimes you'll be able to tell. For some of you, you might be able to look at it and say, okay, that's what they're using. They're all within like a little mouse, a little aquarium, or terrarium, or I guess whatever you call that for mice, and you pick it up and you put it in the chair. You'll see how it goes. You click on the Mouse Party link, and then it'll bring you to this game. And when you click on it and put the mouse in the chair, it's animated, and then it tells you really what's going on with the drug and how it's affecting the brain. So that'll go in with, it's a nice link to add into the information that you would have read for the module 2. But the other thing that it's great for is, you might get a lot of resources for your wiki and information on drugs, or the topic that you have to pick. So, that's just one of the many resources. There's lots of resources out there. The website, I'll give you a few again. CAMH. If you look at, so that's CMHA, CMHA, Center for Addiction and Mental Health. So so I'm getting it confused. Canadian Mental Health Association is the other one that I just referenced, which is a great website as well. But what you're looking for is CAMH, CAMH. And if you go to their website, that's your text. And then CMHA is Canadian Mental Health Association, which again is a great one. But I was talking about the Center for Addiction and Mental Health. Sorry, I was just getting sidetracked looking at my screen and all the different things you can do on the University of Utah. So again, I'll put a link to that. That's a great resource. Also, there's just some fun things you can do. You can learn about neurons, how they work, and how drugs affect them, and how drugs affect the brain. But then there is some other actual information other than just the games that you can kind of fool around with on there. So that kind of wraps up the video today. I just wanted to, again, welcome everybody to week 3. I know that, like I said, for a lot of you, this is a steep learning curve, and most of you are navigating this very well. If you're still struggling in any way, contact me. I'll direct you to where you can get the resources and the support that you need. And just continue to engage in the discussions. And Oh, one last thing. I also wanted to let people know, I will make sure that I post this, but I'm letting you know well in advance. So today is January 20th. I will be out of the country from January 28th. That's next Wednesday, so a week and a day from today. And since it's this evening, it's only about 1 week from now. I will be out of the country, and I will be gone for a week. I will be returning on the following Wednesday, which I believe is February 4th. And so I will not likely be in email contact. I'm not sure. I'm sure where I'm going to be has Wi-Fi, and I'm going to try to connect the best I can, but I have no idea what the rates are going to be, or if I am for sure going to be able to connect. And I'm not going to be taking my laptop. I will take my my phone with me though, which I can connect to. So it's just not likely between the 28th and the 4th. Between those two dates, again, January 28th to February 4th, that I will be able to respond. So if you have questions about what's going on, get them to me as soon as possible. I'll do the best I can to respond as quickly as I can and before I go away. If you text me Wednesday morning, I will be on a plane at 9 a.m. and I will not likely get back to you. So text me before the 28th of January. Again, I will be back in the country on Wednesday night. I will be flying in, which again I believe is February 4th, but I'll be flying back into the country. And I will do my best to respond to people on Thursday. That's when I will get home, and I have taken the day off work, and so I will be really just catching up on all the schoolwork for the in-class and the online course. And so I just wanted to let you know that, give you lots of information or lots of time for that. So if you have questions, get them to me now. And then, like I said, I'll be back in on the Thursday. But please don't wait for that. If you have questions, send them out to me now. Or if you have some, I need to be directed to places, let me know. Okay, so I'll wrap all that up, and having said all that, congratulations, you got through your first 2 weeks of the online course. I hope that it wasn't too painful, and we're going to continue on this journey, and hopefully there's lots to learn, and I really look forward to seeing how these discussions grow and really seeing how people are able to pull stuff out of the text and what they're able to learn. It's really unique because it's a nice process for me to parallel this with the in-class learning that's going on. I get to see what kind of the pros and the cons of each, and what's helpful. And you know what, the amount of discussion that we had in the first 2 weeks on the discussion boards is actually way more discussion than we had in class with people. And there's more space for people to do that in class, but people they're just what we see is that sometimes this online format is a nice way for people to engage with one another. And for some people, it's an easier process, an easier way to engage. So I hope to continue to see that, and good luck. And if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks.